is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Berges.
Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you. Hey friends, Ashley Berges back today, and today we're going to talk in our live chat, asking the question, are you living the life that you want to live, or are you living antithetical to your values? We're going to be talking about that today. It's very important. I realize that a lot of us, whether it's a person, a place, an activity, or a thing, there's something like that in our life that we gravitate to, and we're gravitating to something that is unhealthy for us, okay? So this is something that we want to talk about on today's chat, something that I thought was very important to talk about. I've been in sessions a lot today and yesterday, and I find that a lot of times we have a tendency of being around situations that are really not for the best of us. We're living a life that we're not happy with. We're living a life that we don't like. Some of us might actually be living with people or somebody that puts us down, okay? We might be living with somebody who is abusive, and we might not be standing up for ourselves or speaking up for our truth and our value and who we are. And so this is really important stuff that we're talking about today. One of the things that I find that many of us do is we get caught up in the cycle. We've lived this cycle for a very long time, and we don't create boundaries because we don't really know, what a boundary is or how to create it, because we don't want to lose out on people. We don't want to be abandoned. We have that codependency. We have that stuff going on, and so we don't want to take the chance of losing out on anything. And so we don't create those boundaries in fear of somebody, finding fault with us, running out of our life, that sort of thing, and leaving us on our own. Many of us might find ourselves in situations right now where we're letting people walk all over us. So, when I'm talking about antithetical, I'm talking about the things that go against our fiber, the things that go against who we are, the things that go against us as a being, the things that go against us as powerful individuals. And so think about it. So if you're living opposite to your true life, because I talk about the true life, because I wrote, Live Your True Life. I wrote the 10-day challenge to live your true life. The reason why I talk about the true life versus what we hear a lot of times, the best life, is because our best life is that's a great idea, but the best is based on the best we know, and not necessarily living our truth. And the only way to find our truth is by really digging into it, getting through that sedimentary rock of abuse, of issues, getting through to that prehistoric feelings and thoughts and beliefs that we had when we were children, dealing with that abuse, that neglect, dealing with those situations that took place, and really being able to hone in on understanding our truth. And so that's why I titled it Live Your True Life, because in order for us to really live positive and with purpose and not antithetical, we have to know the truth, right? And so the truth is not always the easiest, right? And for some people, the truth is not the best because they might not feel that that's the best for you. And we have to select what is best for us. I think it's interesting because I want to give some examples of living antithetical to life. I want to give a couple of great examples so it really sends the message home. So the first one that I want to supply is the concept of believing in the sanctity of marriage. So let's say that you believe wholeheartedly in marriage and what marriage is, right? And you believe in the sanctity of marriage, you're married and you believe in it, and you believe in that as, a symbol of love. However, even though you believe in the sanctity of marriage, you still stepped out of the marriage and you're having an affair outside of the marriage. Okay. So there's no judgment here. We're just looking at the reality of your truth. We're looking at the reality of your beliefs, your feelings, your morals, and how you feel about certain things. So if I believe in the sanctity of marriage, but I've also am stepping out in my marriage and having sex with somebody else, I have to figure out what I'm going to change. Okay, am I going to change my belief in the sanctity of marriage? Am I going to change my views about marriage? Am I going to change how important marriage and the concept of marriage is to me? Or am I going to basically stop stepping out of the marriage? And so we either have to change our thoughts and theories and beliefs, or we have to change our actions, right? But we can't keep doing both at the same time, because you see, we're actually living antithetical or opposite within ourselves. So we feel the sanctity of marriage and we care about it, but yet on the same side, we're still stepping outside of the marriage. And so we're not living true to the marriage. So we have this internal fight, right? And so that's why people usually get angry in relationships, and they have arguments, and that's why they hold on to a lot of stuff, is because we have thoughts about things and we have beliefs about things, but we don't really know how to deal with those beliefs, how to shift our beliefs, or we don't know how to deal with the actions, okay? And so we have to get right with this. And so we're going to be talking about that. So it's the same type of concept. I'm not going to be talking about marriage and stepping outside of the marriage. We can if you want, but I wanted to give you that example because we can't believe in something and hold it at a sacred level, but then turn around and do something that basically destroys the belief that we have, okay? Because that leaves us at odds with ourselves, and then that internal battle. So it's like going into a fight, and instead of hitting the other person, you're just hitting yourself, and that's usually what happens here. So many of us are living a life like this right now. We have an issue in our life, we're not happy with it, we're sticking with it, even though we don't appreciate it. We're staying in the situation, even though we don't like it. We're staying, you know what I'm saying? So we're there. It's not giving us any sort of, it's not giving us that warm and fuzzy. It's not giving us that positive. It's not giving us that unconditional love, but we're sticking in it, even though we know that's not what we want in our life. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about the distractions in life. What are some of the distractions that you're dealing with in your life? Because many of us, we're in these cycles and patterns, but we don't really realize it's about our beliefs and our issues and who we are. We actually see all the outside distractions, and we get off target and off point because of that. And we end up seeing the distractions and taking care of people. Maybe we're saving somebody, that's a distraction. Maybe we're trying to save someone from themselves, that's a distraction. There's all these things that we create as distractions in our life. And so we got to hone in on that. We're going to be talking about friendships. We're going to be examining our lives, and we're going to really look at values and boundaries and really understand what we truly stand for. And, at least touch the surface here in this chat. And then later on, we'll have a Q&A. So I look forward to continuing this conversation. Please stick with us. We'll be back in just a few moments, okay? Well, Ashley Berges on this live chat. We'll be back in just 2 shakes.
Is there something impacting your relationship? Even though the years when your kids are small is a beautiful time of life filled with magical moments, it can also be a time when couples struggle to stay connected. After all, your kids need a lot of your time, but so does your business or your career. And making time for self-care is hard, so your health and well-being suffers. And date night? Well, that seems like a distant dream. So instead of days filled with loving connection, there are moments of tension, stress, and worry. But what if there was help to get you through these years? A solution built with young parents in mind. One with no difficult concepts to master. One that's fun and gives immediate results, and fits seamlessly into your schedule no matter how busy you get. A solution to make sure you stay connected. We're offering you support to keep your connection strong. The Connection app for couples. Click the link below to learn more. We're making together better so your moments stay magical.
Hi, my name is Reginald Harvey, and I'm a wellness champion. I just published the medical memoir Anatomy of a Patient to inspire those affected directly or indirectly by a life-threatening diagnosis. Do you know or have a family member or dear friend who is suffering from catastrophic illness or debilitating disability? This is a conversation that few people are willing to have, and I want to have it with you. You can hear me on Live Your True Life Perspectives with Ashley Berges. For more information, go to reggieharvey.net.
Welcome back live here on our live chat. I'm Ashley Berges, and I'm so glad that you joined my channel and you're watching the live feed because I really like to do these live chats. I think they're a lot of fun, and I think it really connects us as well. I know it's kind of simple right now. We're going to eventually do some Skype calls with some people and get some folks here on the show. We're learning as we go here. Coming from the radio background, everything is a little different, and so we're going to be really working through this and having some fun. So. Right before the break, I was talking about and asking, are you living your true life? Are you living true to yourself, or are you living antithetical to your values, morals, and beliefs? And this is a big question that most of us don't really think about because we don't really take it into consideration, because we really don't take ourselves into consideration, right? We don't think about ourselves. Most of us put ourselves last. Most of us, when we get hurt by somebody else, we worry about the other person before we even think about ourselves, showing ourselves that we really don't value ourselves. More often than not, we have a tendency of being in unhealthy relationships because there's a cycle. It's a cyclical thing. And in dealing from our childhood, we were enmeshed in these situations. Perhaps we were dealing with mother-father dynamic, other dynamics that really caused us to feel hurt, shame, neglect, abuse. So there's a lot of things that a lot of us have come through. I know that many people watching right now who've been through some very tumultuous childhoods, teenage years, even adult life. Some of you might have been through some really tumultuous divorces and what have you. And some of you might be in relationships right now that are making you question your validity, your value. It makes you question yourself at the core, and you feel as though you've lost yourself and your identity because of being in this relationship, okay? And, it's not a crime to be codependent, okay? It's not a crime. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's a product of environment, okay? And so when we're talking about this, we're going to walk through. We're going to talk about people, places, things, items, stuff that you gravitate to that is unhealthy for you. Okay, we're going to talk about that because this is the big stuff here, because once we examine the things that are unhealthy for us, the cycles that are unhealthy. So are we around people that we don't need to be spending a lot of time with? Have we picked out friends that really are kind of taking us down the wrong path? And it's a two-way street. It's not like it's like they're doing it to you. It's that you're doing it to you, but you're facilitating that. And so we're kind of like leading ourselves to these unhealthy relationships. Are you in a relationship right now that is unhealthy, abusive, argumentative, painful? Are you struggling with something right now like that? Are you in a job right now where you're dealing with a boss who is extremely narcissistic and doesn't at all see your value? A lot of these situations you're dealing with, they can feel insurmountable. We can feel overwhelmed, like we can't take care of it. And so on today's video, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about what we can do and what things that we can do and things that we can change to start speaking our truth, to start speaking up for ourselves, and how to know when we're speaking up for ourselves, because in order to speak up for ourselves, we have to know who we are. And in order to understand who we are, we have to take a step back and understand, what is going on in my life? What are the things that I'm really happy for? Making a list, getting out a journal, something that nobody's going to find, nobody's going to peek into. If you're scared that somebody is, you can put it on your cell phone, if you have a lock on that phone, passcode. But I like to always see it in writing. When I write these things down and I see it in my own writing, it actually, it commits things to memory. It allows me to understand and absorb better. And I think that that's for most of humankind. Not everybody, but most of us absorb material by writing it, seeing it, reading it back, especially when we actually use our ability to write it. So I want you to think about, what are some of the things in your life that you're really, really happy about, very prideful about, in a good way, things that are really complimenting your life, things that are really adding to your quality of life. Because sometimes, a lot of times more on this channel, we have a tendency of talking about the things that aren't working. So let's give a moment to the things that are right now, because we do want to have gratitude for the things that are. And we also want to see what we have created in our life, because, you know, a lot of us have come a long way and we've created a lot of things that we should be happy about, but there might be one or two things in our life that we just haven't gotten right. So I want to give you a pat on the back so you look and say, hey, I have created it. Or if you have an amazing child, or you have this, you know, you have a career that you're really happy with. Perhaps, you know, the relationship with you and your mom is great. Perhaps the relationship with you and your sister is wonderful. Whatever that looks like, writing some of that stuff down and being able to take that in is powerful. So when we return, we're going to really flip the script here. Like I was talking about the concept of marriage, stepping outside of the marriage. You love the sanctity of marriage, but you're still stepping out. Another good example, if people have trouble understanding that example, is about, this is a simple one. You're an environmentalist, but you don't recycle. Okay, because you don't have the time, you don't find the time, you don't know what to do. You know, you're an environmentalist and you care and you cry when you see these environmental shows and you cry about the idea of the straws, but you're still using straws, okay, whatever that looks like. So what I'm saying here is that we got to get right with whatever we value. We got to get right with how we act. So if we say we value ourselves, but we're in an abusive relationship, do you see what I'm saying? That's a no-go, okay? If we say that we have an identity, but we're in a relationship where we're extremely codependent and we've lost our identity, again, you see how it's yin and yang. It's like me saying, well, I eat good and I'm vegan, but yet I chain smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So I feel like it evens out. No, it doesn't. That's not how it works. So we have to live true to ourselves. So when I return, we're going to be talking about those distractions in our life. People, places, things, right? Are they friends in your life? Is it a relationship in your life? Girlfriend, boyfriend? Is it somebody at work? Is it drugs? Is it alcohol? What are those things that are distracting you? Really doing an inventory of who you're hanging out with. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about developing your identity and how to do that. Because I know that some of you might say, well, I'm not really sure exactly what my values, morals, and beliefs are, Ashley. How do I get down to that core? And that is an exercise that I'll explain here later on, because that's an exercise that you got to do, because it's like creating a character in a TV show or a character for a film, right? So think about a film character where you get into this really great film and you get into this character and you really bond with this character because you understand that, you know, the depths of this character's heart. You understand what's really important to this character. Like even like a TV show, a TV series might even be easier because over a period of time, right, you get to know the character and you know what makes the character tick, and you know the nuances, and you know what's important to them, and you know what they stand for, and you know the pain that they've gone through. And so we have to really look at you like a character in a TV show, and you need to look at yourself like that too and understand what's my plight, what's my journey, what am I trying to do, what are my values. But one of the biggest things that I want you to think about, and this is a big caveat, is I want you to realize that your values are different from the way you were raised. Just because you were raised a certain way by certain parents with these certain values or morals or beliefs, those do not have to be yours, okay? I'm advocating for you to figure out your values. I'm advocating you to be your own person. So you don't have to take the religion from your parents. You don't have to agree to this and that. I really want you to think about that because you're allowed to pick your own stuff. That's what's so great about like living. We have our own life. That's why we're not like connected at the hip with other people. I mean, we're allowed to have our own values, morals, beliefs, and the things that we want to go on and adhere to, and the things we don't. So, you know, I'm a big believer in going out and looking for what you want and understanding who you are and going within and shredding some of those values, morals, and beliefs that no longer serve you, that you were raised amongst. So these are things that we want to talk about as well. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about how to stand up for yourself as well. And then later on at the end of the show, we'll have another segment. And then later on, we'll be doing some Q&A. So if you have any questions, if you could put those in the chat section, that would be great. Rodrigo will be reading through some of those tonight. And I'm not really sure. I can't see the screen at all. So I'm gonna put that on him. And he's in charge of that. So I have no idea. But do put out some questions if you have them in the section here in the super chat. And I look forward to hearing from y'all, and let's continue this conversation. Ashley Berges will be right back in just 2 shakes. Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you. Welcome back, guys. Live here, Ashley Berges talking about living true to ourselves, living our true life, or living antithetical to our life. Living antithetical to our values, our morals, and beliefs. Many of us are living with somebody that we're codependent with, and it's not that they're around and that's a problem, because we can all work on ourselves, but we might be in a relationship that's abusive. We might be in a relationship that really doesn't bring out the best in us. We might continue to be in friendships and relationships that kind of bring us down. We might be doing an activity, drinking, alcohol, drugs, whatever that looks like, that's also placing burden on our lives. And we're gravitating to that unhealthy stuff. So we really got to think about what is it that we value. And like right before the break, I was talking about how we need to look at ourselves like a character in a TV show. Most of us do not analyze ourselves enough. We ask all these questions of all these other people. So, when you go on a date, you ask all these questions and you're interested and you're asking, oh, tell me more about your childhood and tell me more about this. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't do any of that. We don't do any of it. And, and I'm here to tell you one thing. The relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have in your entire life. I know that you'll hear me if you listen to my radio show, Live Your True Life Perspectives. If you've ever listened to the show, been on 8+ years, syndicated. I'm on USA Radio Network now. So if anybody's interested in having the radio show in your neighborhood, in your area, in your city, in your state, let me know. And we can get that to local stations in your area. If not, you can also hear the podcast on Spreaker or on my website. You can go to Spreaker.com, look up at Ashley Berges, or go to AshleyBurges.com and click on that radio show page. But you have to look at yourself like a character, okay, in a TV show. I know that some of you like certain shows and others of you don't, so I'm not trying to but let's talk about the Big Bang Theory, for example. Each one of those characters, right, has a niche. Each one of those characters has certain things that they believe in and they don't. One believes in science, one believes in religion, and they don't go completely, wholeheartedly in complete depth because the show is only 22 minutes an episode. But you do learn a lot about each one of these characters. We know what they like, what they dislike, we know what they won't deal with, what they will deal with, we know about the toxicity in their past. We know these things about the characters, right? So we need to get into you and understand what it is about you. What are your values, morals, and beliefs? And so one of the things that I did growing up is I learned a lot that I respected my family and their choices on their religion, but I wanted to go out and search and look around. I wanted to make that decision myself, and I did. And I chose differently from my parents. And I'm happy about that. And I made a bigger choice. And it's interesting because later on down the road, my mom made changes. And I was actually a part of that change with her. I actually introduced her to some people. And she actually changed what she had been doing in the past because she realized that she wasn't living true to who she was. And I was kind of the catalyst to helping her make that change. Did I force that change? No. I just said, hey, I think this would be really good for you. Check it out, see. And it was definitely what she preferred in her life because she was going by what she did when she first got married. So she got married and her husband was a devout Catholic, so she followed that and went with that. And so and religion is not the only thing. You can be spiritual. You don't have to go to church. There's not a big deal about that, okay? I believe that you can get that wherever you want to go with that. But what I am saying is that we don't have to keep the same stuff. We don't have to agree with the same beliefs. We don't even have to hold on to the old beliefs. How many of us hold on to beliefs that our parents had, that they put on us, that no longer serve a good? Okay, how many of us have that? So many of us, I've worked with clients for years, and some of the thoughts could be that relationships are never going to work. When you have a mother or father that was in love prior and didn't get to marry the one that they wanted to marry, and so as you're being raised as a kid, you get to find out that love never works. Love's always tumultuous. It's always painful. It never works. You could also be in a family dynamic where there's a lot of economic trouble, and so it's like I'm never going to come out successful. This is never going to happen. This is what happens to good people. Never come out first. Good people never win. All these different belief systems, and it feels very real at the time because it does feel overwhelming and see the different beliefs that we have. So I want you to really focus on what are those beliefs. And I'm not just talking about religious beliefs. I'm trying to offset that. That's part of it over here. But what are the real beliefs that you have? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your value? What do you believe about yourself as a person? What do you believe that you put, that you offer? What do you bring to the table, right? And looking at that stuff, because I think most of us devalue ourselves. We devalue who we are. We don't give ourselves enough credit. We see all the worst in ourselves. We devalue ourselves. And many of us are in relationships right now where we're also being devalued outside of ourselves. So do you see where that's going? And so that's interesting things. And so first off, I want you to think about this, because I want you to get rid of all distractions right now. I just want you to forget about whatever happened yesterday, or the issue that you had at work, or the friend that hung up on you or whatever. I really want you to focus just on you. Because all that other stuff, yeah, it's kind of an illusion. If it's not giving you happiness and it's not providing joy, is there a reason to keep looking at it unless to try to figure out what we need to learn from it? And then once we learn from it and we let it go, I think it's time to just really focus. So I want you to really ask yourself, are you hanging out with the right people to accommodate your values, morals, and beliefs? And I think before we can even ask the questions about the people you hang out with and the relationship you're in and the marriage you're in, you really need to sit down and write down what are your values? What do you value? Do you value freedom? Do you value unconditional love? Do you value intellectual? Do you value being intellectual? Do you value having those communications? Do you value having people that you can springboard ideas from? Do you value you as a person? Do you feel like you can be on your own and hold your own, and you can actually be on your own and you have enough to offer being on your own? Do you feel the opposite? Do you feel like you're kind of codependent? I mean, where are we at? But I want you to really start thinking about that. Values, morals, and beliefs. And I want you to just take out a journal and start writing this. It's going to take some time. This is not an overnight thing. I'm not saying crunch time, crunch time, crunch time. But I want you to think about that, because later on we want to start talking about, because the way that we really know about values, morals, and beliefs is that we know what we're not doing right, or we know what we feel is antithetical. And the best way to find that is who we're hanging out that we're doing something with that we know is not good for us, who we're dating that we know is not good for us. And I know that's simplified, but that actually helps us to realize and reveal that there's something behind that we're not connecting the dots with. And what happens is, if there's something like that, we feel lesser than, we question ourselves, and so we're not being true to ourselves, right? And so in that relationship, the reason why we feel weird about that relationship, and the reason why that relationship feels off, and when we're around that particular person, we feel stifled, or we feel stressed out, or we feel tired, or whatever, we feel like the energy has been sapped out of the room, whatever it is, the reason for that is because we're not being true to ourselves. We're not standing up for ourselves. We're not stepping up for our boundaries. We're allowing somebody to walk all over us. So why would we do that? Why? And so we're not standing up to the plate for ourselves. And I think if we can just start looking at what we'd stand up to the plate for, what are our beliefs? Who are we? What do we feel like? Are we legitimate enough to step up to that plate? Are we a good enough person to do that? Which I'm sure you are, but you got to see it within yourself. It doesn't matter what I say to you. I mean, it'll help to kind of get the flow going, but at the same time, I can't change your belief. I mean, we can work together on making changes to that belief, and that's something that I successfully do. But in order to do that, you have to explain to me the belief system it is, the actual belief it is, and we get to the core of where that belief started so we can change that belief, right, to make it work. So if you don't feel like you're a good enough person, or you're successful enough, or you feel like, let's say, example, you feel that love is painful and you're never going to meet anybody ever, and you're never going to get married, that's a belief system that you're holding on to. And if I believe something, I'm going to live with that belief, and I'm going to make sure that belief is reality. Because remember, our beliefs are real. And so whatever I create as a belief is the way that I live my life, even if the belief is somewhat in my subconscious. So even if the belief is someone in your subconscious because you don't remember it all the time, but you're living toward it, and that's what you're living with, do you see what I'm saying? You're going to live in that direction. So if I feel like everybody's going to abandon me, if I feel like I never have friends over 6 months and everybody always abandons me, well, it's pretty much going to happen because I'm either going to connect with people that are going to abandon me, or I'm going to connect with people that are toxic, or I'm going to basically do something in the relationship for the other person to disconnect the relationship, right? And then I can say, everybody always leaves me. You see what I'm saying? So I make my belief a reality again. Very interesting. When we return, we're going to actually be answering any questions that y'all have on here, on the super chat, on the live chat. I'm interested in hearing some of your questions. I'm also going to check Facebook at this time as well. and see what other questions we have on there too. And so we'll see if we can work on both, but definitely focusing on YouTube to make sure that we get everybody's questions answered, and I appreciate it. So put out those questions. I'm looking forward to hearing them. Rodrigo would list them out here in just a second. So stay tuned. We'll be talking about this, answering questions, and Ashley Berges will be back this time. You know it. I'll be back in 2 shakes. Hey there, friends. I'm glad you're catching the live broadcast of Live Your True Life Perspectives. I've created my very own Patreon page. You can go to Patreon and you can check out my page. The link is right here. It's an amazing platform because I'm able to offer more stuff there, different stuff than I am on the Live Your True Life program, as well as on my YouTube channel. You've probably seen my YouTube channel. We put up new video content every week. And we have a lot of great content on there. But on the Patreon page, I'm able to go a step further. I'm offering group coaching sessions, private coaching sessions, as well as access to exclusive content, like the Celebrity Perspective Season 1. I won a Telly Award for that this year. You can watch all episodes right here on Patreon. I'm offering you the exclusive chance to come on the radio with me, to be live on Live Your True Life Perspectives, nationally syndicated radio show, to talk about yourself, to talk about your amazing life, and to inspire the Live Your True Life listeners. When you become a member of my Patreon page, you are directly supporting me to help other people to live their true life. I look forward to seeing you on Patreon. Let's inspire one another. Hey there, friends. Glad to be back. And we've been talking about living your true life and when we're living our true life or when we're living antithetical to our values. Real quick on Facebook, some folks have been talking about distractions. Thank you, Marco, for reaching out. Tammy, thank you so much for reaching out. May, thank you so much. And I love that. I did do the 2 shakes, so that was great. And May also talks about being helpful, useful information, knowledge we gain. May, thank you. Katrina, yes, thank you so much for reaching out. I hate choosing to lower myself. I love that. Marco, I like the fact that my characters are like George Patton. Colonel Kurtz, that's cute. Apocalypse Now, great ones. Jacqueline, I learning as a senior to live my true life, never too late to learn, especially from perspective home. She only cares about herself, and I'm more than done with her. Got it. You know, a lot of times when we're living next to people, the thing is that, you know, we probably wouldn't necessarily choose them as a friend. Okay, some of us have family that we wouldn't even choose as family. Some of us have family that we wouldn't choose as a friend. Some of us have family that we wouldn't even choose as an acquaintance. So I want you to realize that when you meet somebody and they appear to be pretty narcissistic, it's really hard because a lot of us come from codependent background. We were raised in a codependent family dynamic, and we were raised that way because we had that fear factor. Maybe we were raised, mom or dad was codependent. You know, maybe you were dealing with a toxic situation where you felt there was going to be abandonment, there was going to be this and that. The people pleasing, where we feel like we have to people please every time and everybody to be liked, to be loved. You see what I'm saying? If I just do this, I'll be loved. If I just do this, I'll be taken care of. And so sometimes, you know, in those types of situations, we have to realize that we're going to have to disconnect, and we don't have to be rude, or we don't have to, but we don't have to give any energy to that. You know, because when we placate that and we give energy to that, they're getting what they want. We're giving them supply. So what I found is that I can be cordial. Hey, how you doing when I see them? And that's it. I end the conversation. Would I prefer to have my neighbor that's connecting to my house a friend? Yeah, it'd be good. But sometimes it just doesn't happen that way. And so we have to accept it, and we have to move on. And if they are pretty narcissistic and they're pretty toxic, you know, we really don't need that in our life. And we have to be aware of when we do have those codependent tendencies, or those tendencies to want everybody to like us. We have to be aware of that. And the more we become aware of that, the better we are to be aware of our triggers. So when somebody does something like that, so when we get hurt, it helps us to mitigate the pain. And we also begin to know where that's coming from. And a lot of times when we have that experience as adults, we've dealt with it as children as well. So I hope that, Jacqueline, I hope that has helped. I wish that she was, you know, just more friendly, but a lot of times we deal with that. It's also something for us to learn about them and give into them and let them walk all over us is definitely antithetical to our values. John, thank you for watching. Julie, thank you for watching. Robert, thank you for watching. Jeff, great that you're watching. Henry, great to see you. And Randall, great to see you as well. So let's go on over, Rodrigo. Let's go to YouTube. What are some questions that some folks are asking today?
We got a question from Laurel. It says, how do I get any respect in my relationship with family and friends? I'm the go-to gal when people need help, but then get dumped on when I do need help.
Okay, so who asked the question?
Laurel.
Okay, Laurel. So Laurel, you're asking me, okay, you're helping everybody else, you're helping all your friends, but how do I get what? Help when I need help, or how do I get respect? What was that?
Respect my relationship with family and friends.
Okay, so you're helping everybody, but you don't feel like you're being respected. Is that the case? Okay, so Laurel, not a good position to be in. I mean, I get it, and a lot of people find themselves there. You know, in these situations, if I'm helping folks that I feel like I'm not being respected by, I kind of normally take an emotional step back. I start to analyze the actual situation. Because I realize, why should I, and I'm just being straight up, why should I help people when they don't respect me? Why should I help them when they're not showing me any respect? I mean, that's a true sign of a friend or I mean, family, we got a lot of issues with family, but how close we keep all our family members are different variations. But friends are the people we pick. And if you're friends, if you don't feel like you're getting respect from certain friends, you need to analyze that friendship, and you need to step back and you need to see, how much am I doing for this person, and how much am I placating this person because I want that friendship so bad? What am I doing? And how much of the red flags of disrespect am I overlooking to keep this friendship? Because if you're helping somebody and you're doing things for them and you're there for them, that's, the respect thing is a normal, that's supposed to come. That's part of the friendship, right? I've also realized, though, with family, too, you got to ask yourself, you know, who are you helping? What's the reason for the help? Do they understand the value of your help? Do they see your value? Do they understand who you are in the situation? All of these questions need to be thought out. Because If you don't feel respected, that's horrible. But another comment too. If you do feel disrespected, before you jump out, you need to sit down in a positive way and talk to them. You need to just explain how you feel. But you got to do it in a situation where the people that you're talking to are rested. They're not under the influence of drugs or alcohol. You need to talk to them when they're sober, because I don't know the situation here, but I'm giving you all facets of it. And so in that situation, you want to be able to do that, and you want to sit down and say, hey, this is the situation that I'm dealing with, and this is how I feel about you, and this is how I love being there for you. But there comes a time that I need to see some reciprocation back, because otherwise I can't stay in this. Because what is this? And a lot of times when you're trying to help somebody that hasn't overcome issues, and they're turning the sword in on them, and they're self-sabotaging themselves, they're also self-sabotaging the situations and the relationships around them. And unfortunately, a lot of times when you're in that situation, it's predicated by previous abuse that the person has not dealt with yet. So if somebody's been abused by somebody and they never dealt with the abuse and they never took care of it, if they're in another relationship, a friendship, a love relationship, and they haven't dealt with that, unfortunately, they're either going to take it, they're going to put the sword on them, or they're going to take it out on you. And so my last thought for you is that, I mean, on this live chat, not forever, but obviously on this live chat for you to think about, is to basically probably write down your thoughts and to be willing to have a positive conversation, because if it's hurting you and you feel like it's kind of taking over your life in a negative way, and you feel like it's not helping you, you have to be honest with that person, because eventually you are going to be very angry with them, okay? And you're also going to be upset, and you're also going to hold in probably some rage, some anger. But you know, it's like, why do that? Okay? Because I want you to stay as healthy as possible, because if you're giving and giving and giving and you feel like you're kind of getting shit on, you need to step back from giving for right now and start working on you. And I want you to also look at, is there some is there some codependency that I need to work on? How do I work on these codependent traits? What can I do to make some changes in my life? And really focusing on you. And if it's, I don't think you need to make a permanent break from any of these people, but I think you need to make a step back and say, hey, because I care enough about our relationship, and because I care enough about you, and I care enough about me, I need to step back and really focus on what I want and who I am, okay? And then maybe you might want to do the same thing. Because remember, when we get into relationships and we're trying to be people-pleasing, we have that codependency there. And the reason why we have that is we haven't really ventured to see our value. And because you matter and you're worth it, you have value, you need to begin to see that value. And what I've found is that when I began to see my value, what I did is I used to be into all those relationships. But once I started seeing my value, and I started working on this about 20 years ago. I know it seems like a long time ago, but I did. And I did it on my own. And I didn't really have support. And I had to go through the process. And I took a year off from dating and everything. And I've talked a lot about that before. But I learned so much about myself. And when I would help people after that, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, 2 years after that, I would literally, and they were personal friends, personal family. When I was treated like that, I used to accept it, and now, and then I didn't. I'd say, you know, I love you and I care about you, but because I love you and care about you, and because I love and care about myself, we can't keep living this way. We can't keep doing this. This is not the cycle that I'm going to keep doing. I would like to still be around you and hang out with you, but I need you to get you right, okay, because you don't want to placate them, and I'm going to get me right. Okay, I hope this has helped. I know it can be overwhelming and stressful because you're trying to do the right thing, but I want you to focus on doing the right thing for you right now, so you don't have that resentment later toward this other person, because if the other person gets better and things work out, there's still going to be that resentment that hasn't been dealt with. I hope I've answered your question, and good luck, and I look forward to more of your questions and more of your perspective, and I appreciate that question. Rodrigo, anything else?
Yes, we have another question from Laura Adams. It says, why do I miss and or love abusive people?
Ooh, that's a good one. What? Okay, so Laura Adams. Why do I... State it one more time.
Why do I miss or love abusive people?
Why do I miss or love abusive people? Okay, that's a great one. Well, okay. Laura, that's a great one. Why do I miss? Okay. Wow. Well, because you're used to it. Because you're used to being abused. Because you're used to that around you. Because you're used to that type of attitude. Because you haven't dealt with really dealing with the cycle. Because you've been so used to it. Maybe this is a family or friend. Maybe you dealt with this in the family dynamic. Maybe you were raised around this. All these things that I want you to think about. And we get to that point where we're so used to that we bring that energy toward us. That energy becomes part. It's like we find these types of people, right? Because we're used to it. Anything that we're used to seems to try to tries to come back in and change things. Anything that we're used to, it's like we end up kind of bringing back to us. So think about it. What type of toxic people are you bringing toward you? Start looking at the cycle. Does the cycle begin in the beginning? Are we dealing with it with family? Are we dealing it with our inner family, mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa? And from there, how does it continue? Have you been dating those types of people? Been in constant cycles, variations, bringing those types of variations to you. And I want you to think about that, because once you start looking at this, and this is something that I work on with a lot of my clients, is we pull back those layers. I had a client the other day that got out of a very toxic relationship, and we've been working with them to really stabilize and overcome. It was very struggling, very detrimental, very painful. And recently met somebody the other day, almost a carbon copy of this same toxicity, but even maybe more toxic. And thank God they had their boundaries. Okay, but that energy. We're used to that energy. And I see it on a constant basis. So just realizing that when we're used to something, it's normal. It's our normal, even though it's not our healthy. And so that's something that you really want to end that cycle, and you want to understand where the cycle began. And that's something that we could walk through that. We can understand where that cycle began. We can move past that. We can understand where it resonated from. Then we can go through the cycles. And then you can understand what's connecting you to that toxicity. Because until you break that, you're going to constantly bring that toxicity to you, because that's what you're used to. And that's normal. It's not a judgment call at all. It's just real. And what we're used to is not healthy, but it's what we bring to us. I hope that has answered your question, and please ask other questions. I love that question. That was a great question. Rodrigo, any other questions?
Yes, we just got one from Gisela Martinez. I can't get away from my relation with my partner, as not everything is bad, but we have lost trust in each other.
Okay, so who is this?
Gisela Martinez.
Gisela. And so what is Gisela asking?
It says, I can't get away from my relationship with my partner, as not everything is bad, but we have lost trust in each other.
So she wants to get away from her partner?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It says, I can't get away.
I can't get away? Oh, okay. So you can't get away. Not everything's bad. Not everything's bad? Mm-hmm. But you've lost trust. Well, trust issues are trust issues, right? If we don't trust the other person, then what do we have? So I suggest that you and your partner, hopefully, if you can communicate, which this is a big valuable thing in a relationship, you need to sit down and we need to discuss those trust issues. If somebody has stepped out of the relationship, if somebody stepped out multiple times in the relationship, this really needs to be talked about. Because if you feel like you can't trust this person, first off, we have to make sure that it's not trust issues within us. Is there a part of us that we don't trust? Okay, we got to go within before we go without. So we got to look at our trust issues first. Where does our trust come from? Now, if it's an external thing where somebody has walked out of a marriage or done something, how did this happen? When is, what I'm saying? Like, those are things that you actually have to confront in a positive way and walk through. Okay? If this is trust issues from a long time ago. So you were raised in a family dynamic where you didn't trust it, where you were raised not to trust people. That's something we have to deal with too. So we need to confront not only the trust issues exterior in the relationship, which need to be confronted with your significant other. And trust issues is not bad to have a third party. So if you have a marriage counselor or a life coach or somebody that can really, and when I work with couples counseling, it's good, but both people have to be involved. And if not, then both of you have to be able to communicate effectively, because if we can't deal with these trust issues, it will fester. And these are the things that ruin relationships. But first off, I want you to really look at you. Do you trust you? Are there any trust issues that you have to deal with you? And then what are the trust issues? What are the things that are burdening you about your significant other? And I think writing those down and journaling those and having a conversation, because if we don't communicate, we never get it out. We just get more angry. We get more confused. We start more arguments and fights because we think that the other person is up to something. We have a lot of issues. We have a lot of drama based on that. So I want you to think about that, because those trust issues will fester into all kinds of stuff, and it will ruin a relationship. So the quicker you can have those conversations, even though they're going to be painful, but you got to rip off the Band-Aid. If you don't rip off the Band-Aid, then the relationship's going to fall apart anyway, because trust is basically running the ship. Without trust, the ship will sink. I hope this answer has helped. Please really focus on having that open communication. And if you feel like you don't, you're going to need to get a third party to help you to open that communication, because communication is key, but you've got to talk that out. Okay, first off, look within yourself about trust issues, but second, then you got to talk out the external stuff and walk through it, because if you don't trust them, how can you live with them? Any other questions?
We have one from two people, Silver Storm and Summer Miles.
Okay.
The question is, how do you handle false statements in police calls when a BPD partner splits and rages?
Okay, so who is this question from?
From Silver Storm and Summer Miles.
Silver Storm and Summer. And they're asking, how do you deal with false allegations?
In police calls when a BPD partner splits and rages.
Okay, how do you deal with that? So how do you deal when somebody that's suffering from BPD is your partner that makes false accusations against you, calls the police, and starts raging? How do you deal with that? Okay, well, that's a good question. Okay, good question. Well, first off, false accusations. Not good. Am I going to give into that? Am I going to placate that false accusations? No. I'm not going to over-explain myself. I'm not going to try to convince somebody. When there are false accusations and you're dealing with the police, you need to really be as calm as possible. Remember, we have a tendency of reacting. Reacting never did us any good, especially if you're innocent. Remember, reacting doesn't make us look good. You've got to calm down and try to emotionally divide up from the situation as much as possible. Because what happens when we get into the situation and somebody starts raging, right, is we start wrenching up, right? So they're like, ah! And then we start wrenching up because we start getting engaged in the emotion. We get really angry. We get set off, and then bam, bam, bam. We just get right in there with them. And what happens is we're giving them that energy that they want. We got to step back. And when you're dealing with the authorities, you've got to have your wits about you. Okay? And no argument that you're probably having with this person is worth going to jail for. Okay? No argument that you're having is worth getting arrested for. I've worked with clients in my past who are dealing with the same situation where the other person calls the police and tries to set them up. At that point, I've advocated my clients at that point to leave, to exit the property, to get into their vehicle. Now, if they have been drinking or under the influence of anything, not to get into their vehicle, and to have a family member or somebody pick them up and remove them from the premises. You don't want to get caught driving a vehicle by the police, right? That's the thing. So you got to really focus on, first off, when we're dealing with somebody that's raging like that, we really need to take out all the distractions of alcohol, drugs, anything. So we don't need to have anything extra to get involved. Second thing is we really need to calm down and emotionally step back. When we're dealing with the police, we need to be calm. We need to be collected. You also want to ask yourself, how long do you want to deal with this? Because dealing with somebody that's raging and falsely accusing you of things and wrenching it up and calling the police on you is not the type of life that I want. And I don't think it's the type of life you want. So I would recommend that at this point, figuring out an exit strategy, but realizing, why is it that I'm in this relationship, allowing somebody to yell and scream and belittle me and berate me? Why am I doing that? Why? And I think you know why. Because of the codependency. Because of wanting to make them see your point of view, because of wanting them to finally acknowledge your value and to stop, to actually, you have that hope, to actually get them to acknowledge your value, to get them to see your value, to see how great you are, all the stuff that you've done for them and everything that you've tried to make them. And instead of that, they're not seeing that. They're seeing the opposite. They're devaluing you. They're seeing your problems. They're seeing your issues, and they're making you feel even worse. And I need you to really think about that. Because it's not just them with the situation, it's also us that keeps ourselves in that situation. So I advocate, if you are dealing with the police, be as calm and collected as possible. If they are false accusations, if they're trying to claim that you've hit them or hurt them, you really need to, first off, no physical violence ever, and then you need to leave the scene. You need to say, hey, I'm leaving until you calm down. And if you have not been drinking and you're not under the influence, you can drive away. If you have, I need you to call somebody that you feel is a safe person to call. Get some stuff if you can. Hopefully this person's not hurting you, and you need to leave the premises. I would also advocate at that time that you need to probably call the police too. If this has been a situation over and over again, you needed to have a report revealing the situation from your side, especially if there's a wedding, a marriage here, if you're married and if there's children here, and if they are also saying that you have been hurting them. You really need to start getting some analysis on your side, and you also need to be thinking about why you're in this, because the last thing you want to deal with charges, trying to remove charges, and dealing with being arrested for something you didn't do. I hope this has helped you. Any other questions? Thank you for that question, by the way, because a lot of folks don't realize how deep they're in it because they don't see it, because they're so close in it, they're in it, that they don't realize how incredibly unhealthy this is. Because you're in it, it's wrenching up so much that you don't really see how wrenched up it is. But I mean, to me, that's toxicity, that's fear, that's a scary situation, and you don't deserve to live in that type of fear. Rodrigo, any other questions?
Yes, we have one from Out of the Fog. Can people with personality disorders ever change? If not, what's different with their brain that doesn't allow change?
Out of the Fog. Can people with personality disorders ever change? Good question. Yes, they can. They can, for sure. We can all change, right? But we just have to work on ourselves. Depending on what the personality disorder, working, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectic behavioral therapy, there's a lot of different types of therapies that we can do to really work. And if somebody's willing to go back to the original prehistoric beliefs, there's a lot that can be done. So it's not for naught. It's not like, oh, they're doomed and they're never going to get better. But they can't keep giving the same song and dance. So it can't be, I'm getting help and they go to see a therapist one time, okay? Or I've changed and nothing's changed. There has to be real specific depth and deep help. And I know for a fact that it takes over a year, I think, at least a year of consistent dedication to really make change, for change to hold. And I'm not saying after a year it's done. But I'm saying that in order for somebody to really work through this, especially someone that, because there's different spectrums, right? Personality disorders, you have various spectrums. So people can be very light, what I'd consider a light version. You kind of have a medium version, and you kind of have a high version of it. And so there's different versions and there's different variations. So depending on that, and depending on how much work they've done, it would depend on, is this kind of a lifetime? And I think all of us are on the lifetime plans. I know I'm on a constant plan to work on my life, and I work on it every single day, and I meditate on it, and I write notes on it, and I really focus on my inner workings, and I focus on what is it that I really want to work on today. I work through the historic beliefs. I work through the prehistoric beliefs. There's so much work that I've done, and so I believe that if you're willing to do the work and you know why you're doing the work, yes, they can change. I don't think we have enough time to go through specific personality disorders tonight, but I do think that for the most part, if somebody is cognitive and aware of narcissism or borderline or even histrionic, I think that they can make changes, and I think they can live a very normal life. and be very happy. But it takes a lot of work, and it takes consistency, and it takes them to put themselves first to figure out what do I need to do, and how did this happen, and where do I go from here. And it also takes somebody to be very helpful and being supportive of them, but it can't be talk. It can't be lip service. It has to be real work. And there are some really great folks out there. There's also some inpatient places where you can go and you can really get, I think a kind of a jump start to it, whether it's a 30-day jump start or whatever. But if the people are really serious, yes. And so I really appreciate that question, because a lot of times people say, well, it's doomsday. It's not. It's not doomsday. And that's another way when we say that it's not changeable, it's another way to not work on ourselves. Because I think everybody has the ability, because it's not fair. If it wasn't changeable and we couldn't augment it, then that would not be fair. Why would somebody it would be something that somebody couldn't overcome. I think many of us are born with things that we have to overcome. We're in a lifetime of things that we have to overcome. I dealt with a health condition that I'm still dealing with that I had to overcome. It wasn't a death sentence, but it was an uphill battle. Same thing goes for personality disorders. Not a death sentence, but definitely something that has to be worked on. And I believe that anybody can make changes to their life if they're dedicated, they're determined, they put the time in, and they're doing it because they realize that it's important for them, not because they're doing it for the outside world. It's like going to rehab. The only rehab that works is when we go to rehab because we know that we want to get sober, not because mom, dad, wife, husband wants us sober. It's because we want to be sober. That's the key. And if somebody wants to be sober, they will work hard, and they will do the work, and they will go through sobriety, and they will go to the classes, and they will keep consistent. Same thing for everybody. And no matter what we're dealing with, it works. I really appreciate the question, because we can overcome a lot of things. And if we just stick to it, yeah, we can make some greatness in our life. And I totally believe it. Thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. We done? One. Two or three more? Okay, let's see, what time is it? Let's do two more.
From Life is a Journey is, how do I deal with a narcissistic bullying at work? Would a recording device be necessary to record the verbal abuse so I can expose and report them?
Ooh, okay, so who is this?
Life is a Journey.
Life is a Journey. So you have a narcissistic person at work. You're dealing with them. I'm sure that this has been a consistent going thing, right? Is that what? Okay, so how do you expose them and deal with them with HR, so forth and so on? Can you record them? I'm assuming that probably because you are even thinking about recording them, that I guess that they're probably undercover and they might just be going after you, perhaps. Maybe this could be a personal vendetta. Maybe this is just the fact that you're right next to them. And I don't advocate people recording things all the time. Now, don't be going crazy on these recordings, but I would advocate probably first going into HR if this is a company and having a conversation before I recorded, just to see if there was anybody that was interested in what I had to say. Especially if it's extremely abusive and you find it extremely offensive, and I don't think you'd be asking the question if you don't. And then I would ask, how do I deal with this? How do I rectify this, and see what they have to say. If they have some really great feedback, great. If they don't, and you feel like you're up against the wall, then I would probably ask you, what do you think at that point would you want to do? And if they are outside and outwardly different to other people than you, and you're kind of getting the brunt of this, perhaps a recording would be good. But you would need to have gone in and talked to HR prior. And I think that's one of the biggest deals. And then you could provide a recording, especially if it's very vile and very abusive. You shouldn't have to deal with that day in and day out at your work, because that's living antithetical to your values. They either need to shut up, you know what I mean, or be moved, or they need to probably go away. Abusive and being gnarly and nasty is not helping you to do your job better. It's not helping you to focus better. You're probably taking that home with you, and you're also probably taking that in your thoughts, and you're also dealing with that at home. So yes, I would advocate doing what you need to get the point across to HR to start an investigation into the situation and see what can be done. I would give them opportunities to move the person. Unfortunately, if they move them to another area, then somebody else gets it. But at the same point, offering that option, but then also probably offering, it's good to have some, I guess it's probably good to have that if you need it. So if you do need to have a recording, just remember when we record people without their permission, we just have to be aware of that. But if it's used to share privately, I guess, to show what you're dealing with, I think if that's the last resort, then it's the last resort. Might as well do it. Any other questions?
Yes, we have another one from Silver Storm. It says, how do you deal with a financial control in a same-sex relationship? Should I have access to the account?
Okay, Silver Storm, should you have access to the account? Joint relationship, so you don't have access to the account? Is it both of your money? So the question is it, I'm assuming it's joint account with both your money in it?
He commented also that his partner is the provider, and he's told that it's not his money.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I think that if you're in a committed relationship, I think that if it's an agreement, and this was an agreement, and he knows that he's the breadwinner in the family, this shouldn't be a question about if you have access or not. I think that we need to have a conversation on the relationship itself. I think that you need to sit down and probably see the balance of power here. And if this is the way that the control is, either you want to get your own account and start your own deal and make it where it's just your account and he has no access to it, or you have to kind of deal with the way that it's been set up. And remember, people use money as a way of power and control. So if it sounds to me like it's a power control thing, so you got to think about, are you willing to deal with this? If you're willing to deal with this, then you got to deal with the stipulations in the agreement. If not, then I would suggest, probably thinking about creating your own account, doing your own thing, but having a good life sometimes and dealing with that type of stuff can be helpful. But you need to decide what you're willing to deal with and what you're not willing to deal with. Because if he's treating you with disrespect and telling you it's my money, you really need to think about it. Is he making it hard for you to work? Is he making it hard for you to have your own life? Because if that's the case, then that's abusive, because that's not fair. If he's not allowing you to work and not allowing you to have your own money in your account, that's a problem then.
He also has BPD.
The partner? Okay, so the partner has BPD. Woo. Okay, so communication's probably not going to happen that well, and then he might feel like you are threatening him with the communication. So one thing that I've realized, though, is that when people have certain personality disorders, they're trying to use control. Okay, he's controlling you. This is his way of control. So he's controlling you with the money. So the only way to overcome a control factor is to basically take the control away from him and have your own. Because otherwise it's going to be thrown in your face every day. Okay, and so remember, people use the power they have when they're not healthy, or they're not acting from a healthy position. They're going to use that as a power play. Like, I have a friend of mine that has, it's interesting, because when you're growing up and you don't have a lot of money, and you have friends that their family have a lot of money, and you get to see it all the time. One of my good friends that I grew up since with elementary school, his mom, I used to be like, God, he's got the best life, his mom, everything. And I didn't realize that she would control him with the money. I didn't realize that she was also suffering with BPD as well, but she would control him with the money. And that was the one control, because he moved out, he got married, he had a job, but she would control him with that. So you got to think about it. Wherever there's a control factor, you've got to eliminate that ability for control. And then maybe you can be more on solid ground together. If you eliminate that control factor from him by taking away the control, i.e. getting a job, having your own money, doing your thing, things could really change in that relationship and maybe kind of start ironing out. Otherwise, you might start realizing that this might not be the relationship you want to be in, and maybe go down your own path. But remember, whether it's money or a house or the cars or whatever point of contention of control, okay, or it's keeping you from family and friends, whatever that control is, you've got to eliminate that factor of control. And money is a big one. So you really got to think about that. Does the lifestyle Does that outweigh the control issue? You got to think about that. And that's what we've been talking about. Are you living true to your life? Are you living antithetical to your life? That's for you to decide. If the money outweighs the need to have that, so be it. But if you don't want to keep getting controlled by that, you want to think about that. I hope that has answered your question. Awesome. Well, you're done today. I really appreciate all the questions. Y'all are amazing. I look forward to our next live feed, and we'll be doing one for sure next Tuesday. Rodrigo will be here in studio with me, and we can't wait. Thank you for all the questions. I hope that they have been all answered. And in the meantime, if you have any other questions, put them in the feed here, and we will get to those right after the show gets live. And also, don't forget, you can check out my website at ashleyberges.com, ashleyberges.com. You can go to the radio show page, and you can also listen to the shows, the podcast after they're on the radio. If you are looking forward to, or if you would like to have Live Your True Life Perspectives to a radio station near you, just put it in the comments section, because I'm with USA Radio Network, and we syndicate the show nationwide, so they can watch that as well. Also, if you're interested in the 10-day challenge to live your true life, go to the website, ashleyberges.com, click on, I think it's book or something, I don't remember. I think it was put in the comment section earlier about Rodrigo. So check out the book, the 10-day challenge. I also have a really cool coaching series that's coming out soon that I'll be sharing with y'all, and I look forward to sharing that with you because I'm really excited about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for creating an amazing community here, because we all learn from one another. This is a judgment-free zone, okay? No judgment here, because we can't learn if we're judging, right? Judgment-free zone here. Thanks for making it amazing. Thanks for making it judgment-free. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Subscribe, please. Thank you so much. And also give a like on this video if you like it and it's helped you. Share it with your friends and family. And also, in the meantime, in the comment section, let me know some stuff that you took away from the video, and some ideas, some thoughts you had, and maybe some stuff that you're dealing with, and I can try to answer as many questions as possible. Look forward to hearing from you. Looking forward to hearing your perspective as always. And don't forget to live your true life.